Welcome back to the Brooks Project. In the last video, we left off at the end of our layout for the first floor. And in that process, one of the things I did not mention or did not go into much detail on is the fact that you need to number or letter your plates before you move them off the slab prior to standing your walls. You'll see some of that process here today, but just know that once you have laid out all of your interior walls, all of your exterior walls, and you've snapped all those lines, you've got to number those plates so that once they get moved, they will be moved right back to the proper position on the ground. And in our case, we used letters to mark all of our plates, and we put those letters on the slab where those walls are going to go. Now, we were pretty lucky. All of our marks were still, you could still see the marks by the time we stood up our exterior walls for the most part, so that worked out okay. If you were on a post and beam or a wood floor system, it's easier to keep those marks down. But anyway, here you go. The process for assembling walls. For some of you, it may not be obvious as to why it looks like we're building a floor system on the concrete. In fact, this is the industry standard for building a production wall system. These walls will be built on the ground and tilted up onto their marks. Now, this allows for way more quality control. You can square these walls, you can sheet them, and you don't ever have to get on a ladder. This is the process for building a supremely better wall in half the time or less. Hearts break on the Some things worth pointing out here. A production framer is not someone who spends time on their knees if they can help it. When you're on your knees, you're in a dangerous place. If something falls, someone bumps into you, you cannot get up and move very quickly. And if you're on your feet, you can move faster, and you can always get a full swing on your hammer. This is super important. And there's a lot of little nuances like this that make the job incrementally faster by the day, by the minute. And they're not so obvious until you've got usually several thousand hours of this kind of work under your belt. That said, on occasion, you will take a knee. And I do mean taking a knee is the right way to do things. When you dedicate all of your body weight to both knees, like I said before, it's dangerous and it's slow. And everything we do here is about efficiency and production. Another thing I'd like to point out, you saw that we were lifting the walls with chains and lifting them up off the ground and setting them on the bolts. Well, honestly, that was a mistake. Those should have been put on blocks and tilted into position and slid very gently as possible onto those bolts. But for a number of different reasons, it didn't work out quite that way. And because of that, it tends to rack the wall this way and that. And even though you spend all that time to make sure that things are square and perfect, it may mean that you have to make some adjustments after the fact, which we did. We went around and smacked down the plates and brought certain areas that got contorted back into square. And overall, not a hard problem to overcome. It took very little time to make some of those adjustments to our wall. Well, every job comes with unique challenges, and there's always some small obstacle to overcome. The production mindset and the production methods will help to streamline all of these little issues as they arise if you follow industry standard processes. There's been several generations at this point building conventional style frames, and it's the way that it is done. It's not anybody's particular style. It's not anybody's particular genius, but it is the body of so many tradespeople doing these things repeatedly that bring us to an evolution in building sciences and productivity that allow a house like this to be built in, or at least framed, in 3 to 5 weeks. And in this case, we haven't even gotten to 3 weeks while we're flying these beams. And currently, by the end of this video, we are at 3 weeks if you count actual man hours on the job. Here I am gang cutting to some degree TJIs. This particular pack of TJIs came to us and was not pre-cut. I had to cut all of these down, and by use of the beam saw here, I'm able to cut a couple of these at a time, and could probably cut more than a couple, but for accuracy I just cut roughly 2 at a time. And it works pretty fast. As you can see, we got all the TJIs down. The TJIs sit into a saddle and are allowed up to 1/4 inch of slop in between the rim board or the saddle in most cases. But for us, we were within 1/8 almost everywhere, and our rim board is tightly attached to the ends of the TJIs everywhere. And you might have saw some of that process just a moment ago. And unfortunately, because of the rain and whatnot, I didn't get much good footage of stacking and rolling the joists on this floor system, but at least we got some of the sheeting process here. Some of you may have noticed at this point that when we're framing walls, we're using our hammers. And I would say that probably 50 to 60% of this entire structure will be hand nailed. The reason for that is quality control and efficiency. You'll notice that if you are at all competent with your framing hammer, You only need to drive 3 nails for the average conventionally framed 2x6 wall per stud. It will require 4 if you're using a nail gun. And also, you don't have to drag around the hose, the cord, the 50-pound compressor. You eliminate jams and mechanical failure issues out of the equation. Not to mention that hand driving a larger diameter nail has superior holding strength. Up to this point, we had been dealing with freezing rain and having to break and clean away a little bit of ice and snow. But in a moment here, you'll see Mother Nature kick it into high gear. Makes the job slower by double easy. So here you'll see the guys are working on the front side wall, I should say. This is an LSL framed wall, 9.5 inch wide studs of engineered lumber, and they are attached to these steel columns. This is 3/8 steel moment frame that will be built into these walls on the front left and right of the structure, and then a giant balloon frame to finish the large wall in the very front, and that will be in the next video or two to come. But here you'll see Jason tapping some holes so that we can set a brace to keep this wall square as we lift it into place. I wanted to make sure that we put the forks under this wall and had good positive points of contact as we tilted it up. Unfortunately, because of the tree and the angle of the gradle or the telehandler, this was not really possible. The backstop was going to stop the angle from getting a clean pick on the wall, so we resorted to chains again, which I'm not a fan of because it's harder to have an accurate lift, and it tends towards lifting the wall rather than tilting it. And for that reason, I wasn't excited about the idea, but we went with it anyway, and it turned out okay. I'd like to mention that lifting, or better words would be tilting up these conventionally framed walls with a telehandler is not an exact science. The telehandler is not a precise machine when it comes to this sort of work. It's meant to pick up pallets and move material around for the most part. It will handle this job easily, as in there's no issues with the strength of the machine, etc. However, you have to be pretty good on the stick to get this telehandler to telescope backward while at the same time continuing an upward angle on the boom so that the wall can tilt up. And so this means whoever is operating the machine needs to be slow and patient and methodical, so not to rock things around or create a dangerous situation on the ground. A crane is probably the better job, or sorry, the better machine for this job. But the telehandler can do this work as well as move so many other things around easily. So it's really a benefit to have this machine on a job site.
Take me back to the old dirt road where Mama and Papa used to go. Let's sing all them songs from a long time ago and pine for them old days of yore. Well, let me run through the breeze like the leaves on the trees. Let me fly like the leaves when they fall. Well, let my mind go serene like a cool water stream that runs from the mountain so tall. Oh, take me back down the old dirt road. Take me home to rest where the mockingbirds nest and to cry through the green in the spring. Let's go back a ways to the old bygone days and the simple time we lived back when. Well, let the pull of the plow bring the sweat from my brow and the glow of the fire pull me home. Let me wind down my days in the sweet dusty haze. Take me back down the old dirt road. Oh, take me back down the old dirt road. Take me back down the old